great. Okay, I'm gonna talk about the P5 multi-sector strategy because I was practicing with this since the last year with P5, and I try to apply it to different sectors because now I'm in charge of the PMO in a company, a laboratory, and pharmaceutical laboratory. And for that reason, I'm trying to apply this kind of knowledge to different sectors because we have different kind of projects, and I believe it's so important how we can apply this methodology, this framework that we have with the GPM, and I want to share that experience with you. Okay, as well, Merv present me, and I believe it's not. I don't have to invest too much time with this, but I'm from Peru, and Peru is a country located in Latin America, and so happy to be here. And well, I'm in the coast of Peru, in Lima, more specifically. Now we are in winter, and well, as Mer mentioned, we're in breakfast time. Yes. And well, had been working 40 years here in the as a professional in a professional way. Now I'm in charge of the PMO of a pharmaceutical laboratory. I had experience to work with the PMI since 2016, and I like how the PMI is supporting in different ways to the society, and I believe that in this role as a sustainability champion, it's a good way to support that and how to apply the different experience that I have and also you have in project management, how we can use this for to recover our work because the stability is so related with that, but also in different ways, in a social impact way, also thinking in people, thinking in the planet, and the different issues that we have, and what we were going to talk also in this presentation. I want to start with this phrase that I like it, that it's projects are no longer just mechanism for delivering products or service. I believe this is so important because they are instruments for generating economic, social, and environmental impact. Some time ago, Michael Porter used this term called the share value. The share value is about how the organizations can make in a good way how they can invest their time, their force, their finance for getting to getting revenues for them, but also these revenues can be shared with the society in a good way. Not with charity. Charity is not working so good because charity you use the money to save to help to some activities. But if you use the share value, you can make this benefit, this service to the society, make it part of your value chain that you have in the company. For that reason, I believe it's so important. Make part of the value process that we have in our companies, in our projects. Make it part the help to the society, and not make it only like a charity. Not bring only the waste, only a piece of the earns to the society. We can make it part of the big process that we have. And for that reason, the GPM, the strategy that has the PMI with this, it's so important because we are supporting we're helping the world with the different projects that we have. But for that reason, I wanna start with the global context. What is happening in the world, around the world, what we are working with. As you know, we have different issues around the world. For example, tornadoes, where that we have the melting of the glaciers that we have in the Arctic poles that we have, the forest fire that we have in some parts of the world, the droughts, we have the floods in different parts. Also, we have a lot of hot in the different cities also around the world. And they're impacting our society. We're impacting in the way in which our different resources are working to make the world function. For example, now we need a 1.7 words to have the enough resources to live. We're consuming in this moment resources that we had in millions of years, and we're using all the resources that we have. What the word I believe is we have saved in the millions of years, instead to use the resources that we are producing every year. And we need more more resources to work, and that's a difficulty that we have now. Also, as you know, the SDGs that are working in the UNO, also we're not achieving the objective that is for 2030 by the moment. And we need to make a lot of efforts from different parts of the world, and also the different industries, companies, the society. It needs to work a lot to recover that. But the prediction that we have from the UNO is that we won't achieve the objectives for the 2030 by the moment. And that's so sad. That's so complicated because we need to make more efforts to recover for that. For that reason, different organizations as the PMI is working in that way. And in this case, with the GPM, that I believe it's so important, this PMI sustainability standard that we have, and how we can work with the society with this. As you know, I'm gonna talk a little of theory. As you know, the traditional way that we saw the projects is with the common triangle, with three topics: the time, the cost, and also the scope. In some cases, the quality is so important in our projects. But a value focus that we need to work in this moment is to use a P5 standard, where we can use these three factors, so important factors, and also working with this to in different stages with the people that are very important to help. Also, the planet that we need to invest to save our resources, the prosperity of the organization, because without the prosperity of the organizations, we won't work in the future. The product also so important. How that each product that we have, product or service that we produce in a project, they have to consider these factors: the people, the planet, the prosperity, and finally the process. How the process is so important also to have it is. And as we mentioned, the P5 standard also talk about the people, the social equity, the well-being, the community impact that we have. Well, we can consider that in our process. For example, if we need to consider the human rights, how the increase of the earnings of the people, how they increase their economy, also how they feel safe in the work, how they feel safe in a environment, in a company. It's so important we consider the people that are part of organizations. All the organizations are made by people, and we need to consider them. The planet, all the environmental stewardship, and also the ecological preservation, because we have not too many resources around the world that we need to save, that we need to consider to work it and also to save. And for the reason, the organizations have to, in some cases, we need to use the resources, but we don't need to abuse of that. We need to save, we need to use more renewable resources in some cases to don't impact now to our world. The prosperity, as I mentioned, it's so important. The organization can grow in the years, not only make a charity. It's important the organization can grow to help the society and working together. Also, the process is so important to consider: the governance, the ethics, operational excellence that we can make to use the less resources to be so efficient in the process of the different projects that we have. And finally, the product with quality, innovation, and also sustainable deliverables, because it's so important to use the less resources and also use resources that don't that doesn't impact to the world. And we need to make this with an holistic point of view for for all the projects. Make it part of this to working together to save our world with our projects that we have. Another reason I love it how this how the P5, the GPM P5 standard can introduce these concepts to the projects. How we can make in different sectors, in different ways, we can consider the way in which we can help our world. For example, with anti-corruption, so important because ethical behavior is so important in the organizations. Without ethics, we can we can make a good society. We need to make societies more ethical. It's so necessary to help to the growth of our society and also the next generations. We need to teach this to the next generation that it's so important to be ethical. Also, when we talk about the planet, the air and water quality, consider this, as I mentioned before, the resources are not too much. We need to take care of them. And how this P5 standard is considering different factors, different segments that we need to consider to to make this happen. It's so important. But I understand. I know that most of you saw this concept when you study about the GPM, and I love it how the PMI is doing this. But how we can make this to apply in multi-sector strategies in different ways? I believe it's so important. I try to make this like a theory as a resume of the different ways that I'm trying to work this in my projects. It's so important to establish a governance, define the politics, criteria, and also P5 metrics for the organization. Because in some of projects, I'm in charge of the PMO. For that reason, I have projects in construction, also in digital transformation, in process, cultural projects also in the organization. But I believe it's so important. Start with the good governance and define what are these politics that we need to consider for our projects and how we can make the criteria for the organization to consider in the different projects these concepts and how they can also review it if in the governments we can make a commitment, a committee that can help us with this concept in the different projects. It would be very useful because different concepts are not people specializing in what people that is specialized in one way. For example, we have some ambiental industry engineers that can help in that kind of activities related with the environmental. Also, when we talk about people, we use the help of the human resources of the human resources department that we have in the company. Define this governance to help to introduce these concepts in the different projects. In the portfolio, the second step is so important because we need to prioritize the projects by impact and value, but not only the ROI, the ROE or OI. It's important to consider the impact that we have in the society and also the value that we can give to the society in the different projects. For example, when we use when we contribute, we make a construction, we make a project with some activities in to construct some warehouse, for example. We need to we need to consider what is the way in this warehouse is impacting to this to the environmental. How do we use less resources? It's so important to consider that in our portfolio. And also in the execution, controlled by KPIs, environmental, social, and economics, it's so necessary to use the KPIs to measure this. Because if we won't use the KPIs, we won't control that. And it's so necessary. Finally, the benefits, because it's important to verify after the project all these benefits can be measured by that. And for that reason, we have the P5 impact analysis to identify what are the objective, what are the KPIs that we need to achieve in the different projects, and also measure that after we finish the project. If we achieve it, that if we work with it in that way. I understand in some cases it's not too quickly to measure. For example, when we talk about education, when we're trying to help a school and the way we introduce the young people to the society in the studies, and also make better people. We won't have the result in 1 year, in a month. We will have these results in too many years after. But we need to identify what are the key factors, what are the KPIs that we need to measure to understand that we are starting in a good way, and that could be the result in the future. And also we need to consider what is the continuously plan, how we can make this kind of projects with this kind of process that we define can continue in the future. Because if we don't have a continuously plan, all the project finish and then won't continue the result. It's so necessary to make a follow up to make this happen in the next way. As I mentioned before, these are the steps that I took for the different projects that we try to make with the P5 standard. At first, it's necessary to make a diagnosis, to evaluate what is the current maturity that we have in the organization. We're considered the environmental, we're considered the people in the different projects, and also the impact that we have. It's so important how to measure that, how we're considering that factors in our projects, and also how they consider that factors in our culture. We consider that in the different departments that we have, not only in the projects and only in the process, or in some cases it's only a message for the marketing of the company. That happens in some organizations that uses the responsibility social corporate in the as a marketing way, but they're not applying in the process of the organization. But it's so important for that reason, measure that. Define the P5 metrics because, as mentioned, it's important to define in what way we will measure that. After that, in considering the portfolio, what is the criteria for the P5 standard? In the projects, include in each project the different P5 factors that we have. And finally, measure the results with the verifiers. So important to do that because, as I mentioned before, in some cases we won't get the results in the 1 month or 3 months or in a year, but we need to define what are the KPIs, what are the factors that we need to measure to understand that we are working in a good way and measure that. And finally, make a continuously work to maintain this work that we started. And finally, a dashboard, because in an executive level, it's important how we can share with them the different dashboards, the results that we have, and how we are working in that way, and what are the results that we are making with our projects. But we need to make it visible. As you know, without the support of the board of directors in any organization, the different projects that we have won't be success. And for that reason, it's so important to make this kind of reports and with an executive level for them. I want to share some case of studies about how we are working in some projects that we have. For example, this is a good way because we started to consider certification lead in some projects of construction. We're trying to make a factory organization. We're trying to consider the lead certification. I don't know if you had that certification in the different countries that we have, because it's an international certification, and I believe I'm really sure that you heard about that. But this certification is for the green buildings that we have, and also they are supported and certificate by an international organization that is considering that your building is using renewable energy, that is using renewable resources also, and also we are saving the use of resources. For that reason, some countries and also some buildings are trying to use this. Well, in my country, we also get a bonus with when you got this certification. You got a bonus because you're achieving this, and that's so important. But it's important to consider also the P5 dimensions that we are applying. For example, how we are with this project, how many people is participating in this project, because we are giving job to them. And for the reason that this result, if you make a big project, how you are giving resources, financial resources to the people in a society. For example, if you are making a project in a, I don't know, in a rural city in the country, we're making the economy of that city, it's growing because we are making company, giving jobs to the society. And that's a good way to measure the result of the different projects that we have. The reduction of carbon. For example, when you were making a how we are trying to reduce the generation of the CO2 in the project. Also, how we are saving for the company, because this third is for prosperity of organization. How we are saving for the organization with the use of circular materials, and how we're achieving this productivity gain. It's so important for that. And finally, in the process, how we are, in this case, we are trying to be close to the ISO 14001 that is aligned to sustainability in every stage of the process. And for reason, see, it's so important to consider that. In this case, when we are also making some uh, automatizations and also some improvements in the operations that we have in the organization, but also we're trying to consider the impact that we have in the society and also in the world with that. For the reason, when we are trying to apply some ISO, we're achieving that with this. For example, in the dimensions that we are applying in the five, the worker safety program, because we're trying to reduce the incidents that we have. Also with this redesign of the ergonomic in the facilities that we also have in the organization. How we try to reduce the use of water, the use of energy. In some cases, we're trying to promote a culture to turn off the lights if we are not in a space. Not in some produce in some offices, we have all the lights, but we're trying to make this the people consider that to turn off all the lights if we are not using an space. With that, reduce the consume of energy. Also with the water, we have this the referees with some sensors to reduce the consume of water. Finally, the regulatory that as I mentioned before, in Peru we have some bonuses when you use construction with lead, but also with if you make these kind of practices, we receive bonuses in some cases. But also this reduce the consume and also reduce the bills that we have with the water, with the energy in some cases, and that can be a way in which we can make us as support of this kind of projects. Because if the board of directors doesn't support that these kind of projects, we won't have it. And finally, the cleaner production process are improved with this kind of practices that we have. And the next one is a digital transformation initiative, because when we try to in the company we are trying to improve our ERP and also implementing some AI tools to to use to make more productive, make more efficiency in the time that we have. But it's so important that because we are trying to give this kind of knowledge to our people, to the people who is of our staff that we have in the organization. And this digital training, it's so useful because they are more employable for the future if they have this kind of trainings. Also, we try to use the cloud migration because with this we reduce the consume of energy and reduce the elimination of paper, reduce this kind of the physical hardware in some cases. But with the use of cloud computing, we are reducing this and also reduce the consumption of energy. As I mentioned, this also make a reduction of the cost, the year of the support of this kind of servers, and also in some cases the reduce of time, and that make us also a benefit for the organization. And finally, for the process, an ethical AI governance framework, because we use transparency and data use policies. And that's so important for the organization because they can have all the information available and also um, reliable for them to use for the different decisions that we have for the growth of the organization. Okay, I'm gonna continue with the conclusions of this. Because we need to understand that the P5 is a universal framework. We can apply it in any sector, as I mentioned, in construction, in industry, in digital sectors. It's only to make it to find a way in which we can make this we can apply these tools to in the different projects and how we can make something important for our society. But we need to only to make innovation. We need to try to apply it. It's not it's so important if we only use one factor. If we apply only one factor, that's enough. That's good in a good way because we need to support of every project, of every organization that want to apply this. The sustainability creates competitive advantage. Yes, as I mentioned, some of these projects got benefits for the organization in efficiency, in the reduce of cost, and that made them the organizations make them so competitive. And that's so important because we have organizations with this kind uh, of point of view for to be advantage. Also start with assessment, not perfection. As I mentioned, if we apply only one dimension, only one factor, it's enough because there's a phrase in Spanish that mentioned that each sand, it's a piece of sand we use, we can make a big dessert if we still have the support of different organizations of different people to do this. And that's for that reason it's so important the support that we can make in this kind of projects. The metric must evolve because it's not only the P5. If we use only one factor, we can evolve to use two, three, four, and after that we can use all the factors that we can support the organization. Projects drive organizational transformation because when every project aligns with long-term strategy in BFP5, also the organization may become sustainability, and that can make part organization and also can be also change the culture because to change the culture of organization, it's not so quickly, it's not so fastly, it's not easy. We need to start with a small steps, but after that we can run with this. But we need to start with something. I want to finish with this the phrase of Albert Einstein. I know that you heard about him. We can solve our problems with the same thinking we use when we created them. It's so important that we find different ways to support our society. And I believe that GPM and the way the PMI is working with this in the projects is a good way to support the world. And I invite you to use it, to apply it in your organizations, in your projects. As I mentioned, it's not bad if you only apply, if you have 20 projects, only apply it in one. If you apply it in one, you are helping the world. You are saving the world. And I believe it's so important how the PMI is doing this. And with this, I finish my presentation. Thank you. Thank you to you for you heard all my presentation.
Thank you very much. Let's just get things sorted out. We need. Ooh. Don't know if Leonard's there to sort me out. I'm kind of. Oh, there we are. Fantastic. We're side by side, ready for collections. Oh, we do have a couple of questions come in. Goodness, this is quite a long one. What I'll do is I'll just copy it into the chat.
Hmm?
It says, when you presented case studies, is there a link? Let's just move it. Is there a link available which shows how the P5 was implemented? Example, the checklist, forms, tables, etc., which were filled according to P5 methodology. If so, can you please provide more information? Does that make sense? The use of the forms, tables, templates, etc.
Well, in some cases, we use some templates. We try to apply some of the different different forms and also tables that we have in the templates that we have in the GPM. It's not so easy. It's not so easy. You try to apply all the different concepts, but we are trying to start to make this. But yes, the GPM has their own templates. I started with them to apply to these projects, and also you can use it to also with to apply it also to try to apply the P5 standard. But it's not so easy at the beginning, but we're trying to
Yes.
make it happen in the different projects that we have.
Yeah. How long have you been doing this, Ario, in terms of applying the standard?
Well, this year, I believe it's since March. I tried to apply it and
Oh,
also to
okay.
measure, because in this moment we're expecting that results with the finish of the different projects that we have. I believe in the next 2 months we will have the main results of the different projects that we have and how the reduce of the consume of energy, the reduce of consuming some different process, we will got it. But we have the expectation to reduce some of the different amounts that we have presented in the presentation.
And I guess there's a growing number of GPM practitioners
Yes.
using. Do you learn from each other? Is the formal mechanism even from, okay, you can do something in one industry? Can I look at what's gone on in the same industry, maybe in another country?
Well, I believe it's the in this case, as I mentioned, these tools can be applied to any industry, and I really sure that the different countries has their own particularities, and I believe it in some cases we will have some situations different. For example, here in Peru, we have many cities that are so poor, that has a lot of poverty, and the way in which make a project or make something in a city that is very far away from the center of Lima, for example, we can support to the growing of the economy of the city. But but the way in which we are working in that place, it's not similar maybe in other places around the world. For that reason, yes, I believe it is. Some cities will have their own particularity, but I'm really sure that these tools can be applied in in each country, in each city, in each industry. It's so important the way in with the PMI, with the GPM is working in that.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions here from David Lawrence. Do you have a company name that integrate officially P5 in their project methodology? Do you have a specific name?
If I have a project, a company name.
Yeah, that's the
Oh,
question.
well, we're trying to apply it here in the company that I'm working in.
Oh,
It's called Laboratories Beaumont. We're trying to apply that.
okay. Give that to me again, the name of the company. Just
Mhm. Yes, Laboratorios Beaumont is the
okay.
name of it.
All right. Thank you for that. And did you already assess a P5 conformity when you arrived in the company?
No, no, no. I don't have a DSS. Well, I in the I in the GPM certificate, and I try to apply this. As I mentioned, this is like a pilot for this.
Yeah.
We're trying to apply this to the different projects. But the way in which we're working is to make this governance. We try to make different activities to make this part of the culture of the organization. As I mentioned, this is not easy, but we're expecting this can be part of the culture of the organization and how we can make this happen in the future with the continuously plan that is so important.
Okay. I'm going to pop a question in chat because I can't use that questions thing, but here we go. If frameworks like P5 can help projects generate long-term environmental, social, and economic value, what's the real barrier to their adoption?
I believe it in some cases, um, as I mentioned before, in some cases the board of directors consider that as a charity, and I believe it that that concept but must be changed to do that. The organizations have to consider this impact that we can make to the world part of the value chain that we have for organizations. But if we consider as charity, they believe that we need the budget to make this and also reduce the earns, the revenues of the organization. But if we consider part of the value chain, it's it's a good way to make efficiency. I believe it's so important we make a good speak to present this to the board of directors and also explain them that it's not an investment, it's not an extra cost for organization. If we can make it part and also make efficiency, we need to make the argument, the right argument for them, and in that way we can get the support of organizations.
Okay. Thank you for that. I think we're just about at time. We've got a Tim Podesta commending you on the presentation. I know that I found it fascinating the way that things are being applied. It was certainly something that um, that people were looking for after our last sustainability summit. Was that okay? Here's some great stuff, some great learning, some great theory. Let's now see it in practice. So it's great that you're doing
Yeah,
that as one of the sustainability champions. And I know for others, in terms of that network, you'll be looking forward to seeing Joel and Lucilla as our closing keynote a little bit later on. As I bring
great.
the session to close, then I've put the survey link into the chat. That will take you through to the PDU code. Once you've told us what you felt of it about this session, we'll pass that on to Oreo, beware, and then we're going to go straight into two other sessions. So you have a choice before we'll then get into a 15-minute break. So thank you once again, everyone. I'll leave the code up there for a little, or the survey up there for a little while, so you can help yourself. Slides and recording, of course, are going to be available too. Thank you, Oreo.